Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here. I am really excited to be speaking with you today. You want to take just like 30 seconds, tell us a little bit about yourself and exactly what you do.
Yeah, so today I am the host of Next Level University, a global top 100 podcast with 1,430 episodes, I think, as of today. I am a peak performance coach. I am a podcast coach and consultant, and I just want to make the world a little bit better every single day by getting a little bit better every single day.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. But I know that you didn't start there. Like, what made you decide to start your podcast to get into like this peak performance coaching?
I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. And I had all the trappings of success, all the external things you would think made me super happy. But I was very, very unfulfilled. I felt directionless. And I realized that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. After I opened my final pay stub, when I made $100,000 that year, I remember having a conversation with myself and saying that I am living unconsciously. What's the opposite of unconscious? The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. I ended up being interviewed on a YouTube channel right around that same time. And we got to the end of the interview and I said, imagine if you could do that for a living. And one of my friends said, you can. There's people that do. So I took the hyperconscious thoughts that I had and I turned that into the hyperconscious podcast. And that was in 2017. I started a podcast and I fell deeply in love with podcasting. And that was the very beginning of this journey for me.
Oh, I love that. But at what point from that, like, did you turn to like coaching, like the building of the business, right? So you started a podcast in the beginning, didn't make money right away.
No. That's a good
Right.
assumption. That's a good assumption. So I did the podcast from 2017 to 2018. In 2018, I was going through a lot of mental health struggles. So I actually was having suicidal ideations and debated suicide multiple times. I ended up leaving my full-time job in 2018. And then we started doing coaching in 2019. And the reason was at that point, we were a couple hundred episodes in. I was very broke. I mean, I was $35,000 in credit card debt at that point. I couldn't afford to get groceries. I could barely afford to eat. And I went to my business partner and I said, hey, man, I need to start making money. What do I do? And he said, you should start coaching people for free. And I said, no. I need to start making money. I think you misheard what I said. And he said, well, Kev, we are a self-improvement podcast. The people who listen to our podcast want more self-improvement. The best way for us to monetize is going to be through coaching. And you don't have any credibility yet. You don't have any practice. So do it for free. That was the very beginning. I got 5 clients for free. I coached them for free for 8 weeks. And at the end, I said, I can't do this for free. What do you think of $50 a call? And that is how this whole thing started. It started with not feeling good enough to charge money. So doing it for free, eventually getting better at it. And then that became a huge, probably the biggest piece of our business.
Yeah. So let's go back to like that moment of like when you're like completely broke and you're like, oh, what am I doing for those 8 weeks? Like, what were you feeling? Were you like worried? Tell me the emotional aspect of that.
Anxious. The best, anxious, wondering, am I adding enough value? Wondering, are these people going to laugh at me when we get to the end of this 8 weeks? A lot of anxiety before the calls. I wonder what this person's going to bring. What do I teach today? What framework should I teach? It was really all that. Most of it was self-doubt. Most of it was lack of belief. Most of it was living in anxiety. One of the hardest pieces of this journey for me is I'm a very certainty-driven individual, and I had zero certainty for the first 3 years. And I had anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and that's something I never experienced before. So if I could use one word, it would be anxiety. If I could use 2 other words, it would be imposter syndrome.
Wow. And it makes sense. Like, if you think of it, like you really did have no experience in it. I'm curious, like, what were you teaching? Like when you was it just like more like very coaching style of like asking questions? Was it from your knowledge that you had from like being a podcast host and like getting to interview tons of people? Where were you getting like the content or the stuff to really teach?
It would depend on who the client was and what they were going through, but most of it now in retrospect was habit building. I didn't know a lot about business and I didn't know a lot about certain self-improvement things, but I had been a bodybuilder. I had been into fitness for a long time. I understood how to reverse engineer some outcomes. So a lot of what I was doing was I was taking 1, 2, 5-year goals and then helping them break that down into what are you supposed to be doing today. That was the big piece. For some reason, I don't know where this comes from. Maybe it's an unconscious competency. I'm pretty good at coaching relationships. So I would do some of that as well. It was kind of buffet style. Whatever you need, I'll try to sprinkle some stuff on it. If I don't know, I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to say, look, I can't help you with that. But I would say self-improvement. Really, it was basically self-improvement in a nutshell. I didn't know much about business, so I didn't teach on business. I knew nothing about money, so I wasn't teaching on money. I tried to stay within where I actually felt like I could add value. And that was it. And I am somebody who I do really well with questions. So when someone comes to me with a list of 10 questions and says, hey, this is what I want to cover, awesome. I love that. If somebody just shows up with a pen and paper and they say, let's go, I need to know where you are first. So that also helped me kind of hone that coaching ability.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how I like how you really stayed in what you were good at, but you also, I think I don't know, like you said, I don't know if you realized that at that time, but you took skills that you had in other areas and were able to transfer them and really use it to be able to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. I still do. We were talking behind the scenes. We gave a speech last week and it was a 10-hour drive. And rather than flying, it was just cheaper for us to drive. I used to drive at my old job. I used to drive 10, 15 hours all the time. I'm just numb to driving. Something that I absolutely hated in my past is now a strength in the present. And yeah, it's just to your point. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, I love that. What's your coaching model like today?
Now I pretty much only do podcast coaching. And that's pretty much it. I don't do any mindset coaching. I don't do any peak performance coaching. I almost exclusively coach and consult with podcasters. Now I'm going to paint a picture of what an ideal situation looks like, and then I'm going to help you figure out what your realistic is. So ideally, you'd be doing an episode every single week, and you'd be posting on social media every day, and you'd be on your story 3 to 5 times. You'd be on other shows and blah, 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 blah. Realistically, what can we actually get you to do sustainably, consistently, and then improve on that? I'm very realistic now when it comes to coaching, where I realize a lot of people don't want to build what we've built, or they want the results that we've built, but they don't want to put in the effort. I will not sugarcoat it into telling somebody.
Oh God, people want the results and not that.
Of course, understandable. I understand why, because you don't see the effort. You don't see I did a post on this recently. If I look remotely successful at all to anybody, it's because you see the 100 public successes, not the million private failures. That's all. That's the only difference.
Yeah. I'm curious as to why you're very strong about why, this is the ideal picture, but when you started, you said this is the ideal picture. Realistically, this is where I'm going to help you. And I thought it was more in terms of numbers of downloads of things like that. And as you were continuing to talk, it's more about the effort of people being able to put in.
Yeah.
Why do you focus on rather helping people on working with how people want to do the things versus pushing them to do a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because one of the reasons people quit is because their expectations are not aligned with the actual outcomes that they're going to get. And they think they either don't need to work as hard or something's going to happen and they're going to go viral. I just want to keep them going. This is my belief. My belief is if you can consistently do 5 out of 10 effort, you're going to stick with something longer than if you do 9 out of 10 effort and get no results. That's my belief. And this is the other thing too. Everybody has a different set point. So I had a very successful client, very successful, but she didn't really understand technology that much. I'm not going to get her to buy a $3,000 camera and a complete studio setup because that for her, it's too much. It's way too overwhelming. Was the quality of her show as high as the quality of ours? No. If it was as high as ours, she wouldn't have kept going. The barrier to entry would have been too high. So I'm always subconsciously trying to say, what is the barrier to entry that's realistic for you? And then how do I help you improve your realistic? That's really my thought process.
Yeah. So you're working together with that person instead of trying to just push them in a box. That's awesome. Now, how do you know, like there is a like a point between of like what you know the person is more capable of, but like they're just don't want to, or you like, okay, like I'm not I don't want any more than you want. Or so like do you try to like ever push them, or it's literally like this is what they want and like that's where we're gonna leave it, and it's okay if it's like really low quality, really low effort type of thing?
Yeah, number two more than number one, only because I've pushed people to the point where they've left. And success means something different to everyone. Success to me might be having a really nice camera and a really nice backdrop and a really nice mic, but I'm trying to be the best in the world at this. My standards must be higher. They have to be higher. That's just the way it is. Somebody else, for them, doing one episode a week, that might be a dream come true. Yes, I can lead. Yes, I can influence. But as a coach, it's your job to figure out where does somebody actually want to go. I had a client that's starting with us. She said, if I sign up with you, what level of success can I expect? And I love that question, Esty. I love it. I said, it depends on how much effort you're going to put in. I can teach you a lot of things, but nothing's going to happen if you don't do the work. That's not how this is set up, right? So I've built a piece of our business on just being honest, saying, look, you're not going to go viral. You're not going to have 1 million downloads this year. Most of that is not real. The 100K in 9 days, that's not going to happen. I can teach you the fundamentals that have helped us get to where we are. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I like that. Like you said, like it depends how much effort. I always start every core. Like when I do the coaching, it's like in groups. So it's like literally right in the beginning, the more effort you put in, the more success you're going to get out. Like that's it. You have a choice to do what you want to do and however much success you want to have. And I'm curious, what is something that most podcast hosts don't know and that like you wish they would know?
Doing solo episodes is a way better way to make money than having guests on. That's what I would say. Having guests is great. It'll get you more listens, but most of us are never going to make money from ads or sponsorships. Most of us are going to make money through understanding business and understanding how to add value to your audience in a deeper way.
Oh yeah. My podcast, like this is YouTube, right? Like my podcast started as a guest show. It switched only to solo because of exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Then I missed the guest thing. So I like now put them on YouTube, but like, I love that. I love that so much. I want to go, a little bit back to your story. Sure. Back to when you said those 8 groups, those 8 weeks were up and like people now were going to pay you money. You asked them like, how many of them decided that they want to work with you? How were you going to get more clients? Like, what was the process from there?
All of them stayed. All of them stayed. And I was coaching a group of sisters that said to me, hey, we can't let you coach us for free anymore. We're going to start paying you. And it was like, no way. But that speaks to the level of confidence I had. I was afraid to ask them. They literally did it for me, which was great, but that was just a Band-Aid. So yeah, all of them said yes. And I ended up going from making $0 a week to whatever it was, let's just say $250 a week, which was great for me, $1,000 a month. Here we go. We're off to the races. And then from there, it was do the same thing. I still do free coaching calls all the time. Every week I do free coaching calls every single week. That is a huge part of our business is, look, I'm not going to sell you on anything. I'm going to add value. And maybe if I add enough value when we're at the end of the call, you'll say, hey, what does it actually take to work with you? That is a firm belief I have. If you've ever been to the supermarket and they give you a sample of something and you say, that is actually way better than I expected, you're more likely to buy it. So yeah, I believe in adding free value because free value leads to paid value if you do it right and you do it long enough.
Yeah. It's free like coaching calls or whatever. It's very common these days. And I feel like some people really do the free coaching like you actually give coaching. And then like afterwards, if they want to work with you, they could work with you. But so many people just like say it, but the whole thing is just like a sales call. What are some of your recommendations for someone who wants to make sure that they're really providing value during that coaching call? But then also wants to be able to transition to sell an end of it.
You have some fire questions. You have some really good questions, ST. You have some good questions. I would say this. I start every single one of these calls off with the same question. Based on where you are today and where you want to get to, what do you believe is the most valuable use of our time? Not me. What do you believe? You tell me what you think I could actually do to add value to you. And then I spend the entire time just giving it everything I have, and getting super excited and making sure I'm pouring into them and saying, look, number one, you're further than you think, if they are. Or number two, hey, there's a lot more work ahead of you than you realize. Yeah, that all of that, I do not bring up money or numbers unless they ask. I will not. I'm don't want to talk
At all
about
the
it.
entire time. Like,
Nope.
so
Nope. Unless they ask, which it happens more often than you'd believe. We get to the end and they say, I know you do blank. What does a package look like? And then I'll show them. If that doesn't happen, I'll send a follow-up email with the whiteboard from the coaching call. That's another thing I do. I do it on Zoom. I use whiteboard. I draw a bunch of stuff. I give them homework. And then I'll send the whiteboard as well as our packages. And I'll just say, if you're interested in any of this, just let me know. No pressure, no rush. Happy to answer any questions. And I just got a new client today who I did that process with 8 months ago. And I haven't talked to in 8 months. Just reached out today and said, hey, I want to work together. Can we jump on a call? Right. Yeah. So that's another piece of it too, is the timing of it. It might not happen right away, but you're also branding yourself as that person. And that's how people are going to see you in their consciousness.
Totally. I love two things that you really said. One is the focus on them. And I feel like that's like literally a theme, and like everything that you do is a focus on them. It's not like a selfish think you're like, I need to make money. I need to, right? Like even when you literally were completely broke, it was like, how can I help other people? That's like, I know anyone who I know who has that character trait is what helped them like really build their business. It's crazy. And then people are afterwards like jealous of their success. And I'm like, if you would have that character and provide that value, maybe your business will look slightly different. So that's first of all. But second of all, I love what you said about like this no pressure selling. I'm a very big believer in that. And there's like a time and a place for everything. And some people are just not ready now. And it's not helpful, not for you and not to them if they like come work with you and they just afterwards regret it. And that, so I really appreciate both like the honesty, the vulnerability, and that it just says a lot about your character.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Awesome. Okay. So now before we get to our final question, where can people connect with you and learn more about you?
Just search Next Level University. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube as well. We do an episode every day. So either you'll love us or you'll get sick of us very quickly. And then if you want to connect with me, the best place is probably Instagram. My handle is @NeverQuitKid. I do all my own DMs. So questions about podcasting, anything, please just send me a DM. I'm happy to answer it.
It's awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Now, final question. What is something controversial that you believe in?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I believe that most people think they're entitled to money, and any coach who says you should charge more but can't give you an actual reason why you should charge more is probably not coaching you in the right way. That is what I would say. I started for free. I still do stuff for free. I always will. It doesn't mean I'm not valuable. It doesn't mean that I don't have a high level of self-worth. It means that I understand the market decides how much I make, not me. That's a belief I have. Yeah,
that's awesome. I like that. Again, like the market is, again, it's like going on you, and you're completely taking out that any sort of selfishness or what you need. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Kevin. It was awesome getting to speak to you today. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me.